Welcome to the VectorVest special presentation, this week titled Automating the All User Group Member HSPC. My name is Todd Shaffer, Manager of Research for VectorVest, and I'll be your presenter this evening. October's All User Group Member HSPC is fast upon us, so it's time to finalize your plans. This is the fourth in a series of presentations that'll be helpful in creating and managing your contest entry. And of course, everything you learn will also help you manage your real-life portfolio too. The series began on August 23rd with the Enhanced User Group HSPC. Senior Instructor Patrick France demonstrated how to manually enter positions in a contest portfolio. He also demonstrated how to create a custom watch list of your hot stock picks and how to use the Unit Search tool in Portfolio Genius to automatically trade them. Senior Instructor Glenn Tompkins followed that up on September 6th, showing how the contest leaders had identified their best candidates. And last week, Director of Trading System Development, Mr. Steve Chappell, reviewed the rules for this contest period, how to manually trade your contest portfolio, and how to automate stop-loss orders with the Portfolio Genius. This week, we'll bring it home by covering how to set up a fully automated portfolio in the Portfolio Genius. Fully automating your portfolio can simplify the task of managing your portfolio. It can eliminate mistakes and improve your performance. Those are some pretty good reasons for automation. But perhaps you're wondering, just how do I do that? So tonight I'm going to do a brief overview of the Portfolio Genius and how portfolio automation works, and also give you some pointers that might help you be more successful. So let's move over to the program. From the home page, we'll select the Portfolios tab. And in the Portfolio Manager on the Portfolios toolbar, let's scroll down. You should see your contest portfolio, which starts with the HSPC designation. And mine says Demo, but yours will indicate your user group and your user group identifier number. Details for that were laid out in Steve's presentation from last week. Now once you're in the portfolio, some things to see. Well, first of all, we have the title on the top bar. We have the title of the portfolio, how much buying power we have, percentage gain loss on today's market action, the total value for the portfolio, and the percentage gain loss based on the change in that value. Below that we have a series of buttons. The Add Trade button, I'll click on that. That's how we can open a trade ticket to trade stocks manually, as demonstrated before in both Steve and Patrick's presentations. We also have the Reports button, as Steve demonstrated last week, to give us some performance reports on the portfolio itself. And where we'll spend a lot of our time today, the Genius settings, which we'll get to in just a moment. Before we do that, however, let's finish the overlay of the page. We have a portfolio mini graph, the equity curve of the portfolio. We'll populate this window, and the stocks in our portfolio will be populated in the holdings window below. Similar to what we do in the stock viewer, this is a table, and these are the column headings across the top of the screen. We've reorganized them for you to give us the most pertinent information in terms of managing the portfolio. And we'll talk about these more as we populate the portfolio. But now let's move into the Genius, and the way to do that is to click the Edit button and open the Portfolio Genius tool. And what opens for us is a setup wizard that takes us through step-by-step setting the automations for the Portfolio Genius to use. And before we get into the details, you might notice in the upper right corner there's a button that says Alert Settings. This will jump directly to the alert settings, as you would see in the Tools function for the overall program. It goes over to the Alerts tab within the Program Settings so that you can set up alerts. So whenever the Portfolio Genius triggers an action, it can send you an alert within the program, via text message, or by email. Once you have your alerts squared away, you're presented immediately with a choice. Would you like to select an existing trading system? For instance, one of our model portfolios would be an example of an existing trading system, but you might also have some backtests or portfolios of your own already established in your program, and you can simply copy them by using the existing trading system methodology. And of course, all of those can be modified from their current status. This week, however, I'm going to focus on building a custom trading system, as we'll still have to answer all the same questions, and the settings can be universally applied. So next we'll go build our trading system. We'll loop back to these secondary questions to finalize the genius and automate the portfolio. So let's click on Build a Custom Trading System. And I now take another step deeper into the wizard, and it presents me with my trading system templates. All trading systems have to answer three very important questions: when to buy, what to buy, and when to sell. And the wizard is going to step us through our choices systematically. So we'll begin with the when to buy, which is a market timing question. My presentation tonight is in the context of this contest. So remember, the contest rules require that we stay invested in a minimum of 5 positions at all times. It also only lasts for 1 month. So let's consider a little strategy here. I'm thinking tortoise and hare. Do I want to play a steady Eddie approach here for the long haul? Or do I want something more dynamic that identifies the latest market moves and responds accordingly? The most steady Eddie choice would be to use no market timing at all. Just uncheck the use of market timing. The portfolio will only have one situation setting, and will only have one set of rules and stay long all the time. At the other end of the spectrum, our most dynamic market timing signal available for intraday users and Derby subscribers would be the Dti Combo. The Dti Combo generates intraday signals based on the movement of the DTI. We can see that it has multiple situations, so each situation would need to have specific rules. Now remember, we can't use extended hours, but we can also use a purchasing window, which then limits trades to happening between the opening and closing values as set by these sliders for the trading day. And we can even select to close all of the holdings at the end of that purchasing window. So I could move the portfolio back to cash at 3:45 in the afternoon in this particular example. For this presentation, I'm going to use the primary wave, so let's bring it up. The primary wave timing system generates 2 signals, a primary wave up and a primary wave down. And so we have 2 situations reflecting those 2 signals. If, for instance, I chose the green light buyer system, it generates 3 signals: an up signal, a down signal, and a neutral signal. And so it has 3 situations: an up, down, and neutral situation. And so we need to supply rules for each situation, because remember, we never want to be at risk of going under 5 active positions. So to stay neutral in any of those situations would expose us to the risk of being disqualified by going underneath the 5 stocks in any 24-hour period. The way we set up each situation is identical. So let's go to our primary wave signal that I want to demonstrate today. And the next thing we need to do, I can hit the next button, which will take me to the details for the up situation. So now we need to tell the Portfolio Genius what we want it to do when the primary wave is up. Do we want to buy long, go to cash, take no action, or short stocks? We want to buy long, that's our default setting. And then the next question is, well, buy what? And so we come down to our 3 tabs here. The first tab is the opportunity to identify our search. In our previous presentations, we discussed how to manually populate our portfolio. And so for this presentation, I want to focus on how to automate that process. One of the things we discussed was maintaining a watch list of stocks that you've looked at their graphs, you've pre-checked them, you've vetted them, and selected them as good candidates. And we can have the portfolio manager use the Unisearch tool to look to that watch list. A little pro tip here would be to make sure that watch list has at least 5 stocks in it so that you don't run out of candidates. Also consider if you had that few candidates in the watch list, you would end up just buying right back into the stock you had just stopped out of. But that's a great way to pre-screen your stock purchases and on an automated basis replace any stocks that get stopped out. The next approach would be to use any of the many searches that exist in the VectorVest program or any searches that you've created in the Unisearch tool. And this leads us to the question, particularly for the new user, well, which search should I be using? The answer really falls into one of two categories. You may have some favorite searches that you find over time consistently work well for you and the kinds of stocks that you like to trade, but there's also an empirical answer of which search has been working best in the current time frame. For more help on that, let me refer you to another special presentation we did on June 15th of last year titled How to Find the Best Searches. Here Steve Chappell takes you through this process of identifying which searches are working well in the current market time frame, and also a way to benchmark your own personal or modified searches to make sure they're working in the current market. Another great idea is to let the Derby results lead you toward current winners. So without being a Derby subscriber, I'm going to jump out of our wizard and let's jump over to the VectorVest views. Every evening we print in the views the best performing 1 and 5 day Derby strategies, the best performing searches within the VectorVest system. With yesterday's down market, all of today's candidates are bearish, so let's move back a day. And now I have some candidates that have been working well on a 1 day basis on the bullish side. If I go back several days, since this market's been pulling back, I can find both 5 day and 1 day winners, and I can notice that, for instance, Bottoms Up was performing well on a 5 day and a 1 day basis, and therefore a little more consistently than our 1 day winners. And so when the market was rising, that search was performing well by virtue of that analysis. So if I go back into my portfolio manager, I can choose Bottoms Up, and if you don't know what group it's in, I'll sort alphabetically. I'm in the B's and find Bottoms Up, and I'll use it as my search. So that's how to select a search when you know the search you want to use and want to leave it fixed. Now, of course, you can change that on the fly as the contest progresses. So if you see another search start performing better than Bottoms Up, you can always change to the new search and use it for your replacements. But we can also change our methodology to the Derby tool. So if you're a Derby subscriber, we can use the same Derby tool that was generating our best 1 and 5 day winners to now look on the intraday basis for the dynamic changes in the top performers. Now, we don't have time in this presentation to educate you on the Derby tool, but it does offer you several methods of analysis: what's working best on an intraday basis, what's been working over the past several individual days, what's been working over periods of time. It lets me filter for price levels and for volume thresholds, as well as setting a minimum number of stocks that it finds to make sure that you're finding a search that finds at least 10 stocks, and the percentage of winners on today's data. Now, of course, on an automated purchase, it's going to buy the top of the list, so it's either going to buy the best performing searches by virtue of their ROI on the day, or the original sort order from the search. So this tool, coupled with our market timing system, can give us a dynamic list of stocks on both an intraday and a daily basis. And of course, as noted here, buy long will only use bullish searches. Our next choice is the Super Watchdog. The Super Watchdog is monitoring the search that you choose and looking for stocks that have just met its criteria in real time. And then finally, of course, if we chose none, we'd be in manual mode. So let's populate our search with Bottoms Up. Our next tab, now that we've completed our search selection, let's go to our stop criteria. By default, we have no stop criteria identified. And so we would simply buy and hold the stocks that we found with bottoms up on our first day of trading. We'll see in a moment here on the More Settings tab that I can make settings to close those positions with a change in the timing signal. But appropriate for this tab, I can choose from my list of available stop losses. So again, a very broad topic for the context of this presentation. You may have your favorite trailing stop or percentage gain loss hard stop, or maybe you like our profit locker stops. I happen to like those, so let's choose Prudent Enhanced for this portfolio. And of course, as Steve demonstrated, you can customize those settings to your own desires. So with our stop loss selected, let's move over to the More Settings tab, and you get a feel for some of the flexibility within the portfolio. So first of all, we can specify how many stocks we'd like to maintain in the portfolio. So with our setting at 10, the Portfolio Genius will run our search and try to repopulate the portfolio to 10 stocks. Of course, if your search only finds 3, it can only buy 3. So remember my pro tip, let's make sure, particularly if you're using a custom watch list, that you have enough stocks available to stay within the minimum number of trades. Our next checkbox is to automatically replace closed positions, which I think is a good idea in this contest because, of course, you need to stay above the minimum of 5. If we uncheck that, any stocks that hit their stops would not automatically be replaced. And if you're not paying attention, you might fall below that 5-stock benchmark. Similar to that concern, our next option is to either buy all the stocks we need to get us back to 10 in one fell swoop, or to step in by specifying a number or maximum number of positions that we're allowed to buy in a single day. So be careful here that you don't underpopulate the portfolio because you limited how many positions you were able to replace. Our next selection is very powerful. What do we want to do when we first get our brand new primary wave up signal? Do we want to close all the open positions that are currently in the portfolio? In other words, go back to cash and buy 10 brand new positions? Or would you just like to close those positions that had been opened when the primary wave was down, or in the neutral position on a 3-situation trading signal? And then finally, don't close any positions. So with the don't close any positions, we're doing what we call hedging. So the only time I'm going to replace a position in the portfolio is if one stops out, and I'm going to carry through any stocks that were already in the portfolio at the time the primary wave changed up. So the question here ultimately is, would you like to let your winners run, or would you like to cut them off with the reversal in the market to minimize any drawdown? So for my system, I'm going to let my winners run. We'll still manage them on their stop criteria. So if the market pulls back, I'll be protected against the adverse move in the stock. But if my stock keeps running, even though the market's pulled back, I'm going to let it do that. Another strategic choice. Next, you can specify how much buying power to use. Odd lots will help you maximize your position size. And limit repurchases. This here we can limit buying back into stocks that we had just stopped out of. Again, I want you to be careful here because if you limit the number of days before you can repurchase the stock, you may find your portfolio falls below the 5-stock limit. Next, we can enforce industry and sector diversification, and we'll typically evaluate our stop criteria from the purchase date of the stock. So we've now completed all the trading rules for the up situation in our portfolio. Let's come to the bottom and click Next, because we now need to specify the rules for the down situation. By default, my action button comes up with Sell Short, and I would need to choose my search mode as I did previously on the up situation. But if you've been paying attention to the hot stock pick that we've done in the daily color guard reports every night, you've noticed that we bought Contra ETFs and gold shares for the downtrends. Well, those I buy long, so let's change our action plan to buy long because I'd like to trade Contra ETFs, ETFs that go up in value when their underlying instrument goes down. So I buy them long, and the search that I'd like to use, let's change back over to the search group names. I'll go to the ETFs group, and I'll choose Buying Contra ETFs. So for my demonstration, I'm going to use the Buying Contra ETFs search for my down market condition. For my stop criteria, I'm going to try to manage these with a little tight leash and manage them on a 20% gain and a 10% loss. And for the more settings, I'll leave everything as default, except I do want to say when I enter this down condition, do not close any of my long positions. I want to hold them through the down signal. If they're running, I want to let them run. If they pull back, then my stop loss will take me out, and I'll replace it with a new Contra ETF position if the primary wave is down. If the primary wave is up, I'll replace it with the best candidate from bottoms up. One other pro tip I want to give you, if you scroll down, remember all Contra ETFs are in the ETFs short industry. So I don't want to limit them by industry, so that I make sure that I have 5 candidates or 5 stocks within my portfolio. Now we're finished with our primary wave signal. Remember, we only had 2 situations. If you're trading a market timing system that has 3 situations, you'll also have to specify the rules for the neutral situation as well. But for my sample here, let's click Finish, and that'll bring us back to the Portfolio Genius global settings. And now let's finish off our last 3 selections. The first question is, well, what do you want the Genius to do when a position meets its stop criteria? You can have it automatically close the position, and then by our settings we said go look for a replacement. Or we could also have it set so that it only sends you an alert and takes no action in the portfolio. You'd have to then come in and manually close any positions. Which, by the way, as a piece of strategery, you can manually override this system and close positions whenever you like. For me, I'm going to have the Genius manage those trades for me. How often do you want it to check your positions? Throughout the market day or just once a day at the close? Typically we're looking throughout the market session, but you might also consider doing it once per day. For instance, stocks that have volatility, my Contra ETFs or leveraged Contra ETFs, maybe I don't want to get bounced out on intraday volatility. I really want to apply the stops on an end of day basis. And then finally, of course, you need to turn the Genius on to have it run your portfolio automatically. But I've come to the bottom of the global settings. Let's click the Save button. We see the current status of my timing signal is that the primary wave is down, and so the Genius is running the rules for my down situation. Because I'm in real time now, I have an intraday graph starting to form on the performance of the 10 stocks that are now in the portfolio. Let me stretch this up a little higher. But now I have some fantastic tools to help me manage this portfolio. First of all, I have all of the company names and the trading symbols, and of course these are all Contra ETFs as found by the search. All of the positions have been bought long, and this is the purchase date of those positions. Now remember, I set the portfolio manager to buy evenly sized positions. So based on the cost per share, it calculated the correct number of shares to buy to have evenly weighted positions over the 10 different stocks. Next, I have the current price, so I can compare the current price to my cost. It tells me the change in dollar amount and on a percentage basis, the overall gain and my return on investment. So one of my management techniques would be really to sort this watch list by either the ROI or by the RT so that I can concentrate on the underperformers. Next, we have the current recommendation profile. We have our gain or loss per share, and if I scroll to the right, the cost basis for the position, the current market value of the position, the stop criteria I've selected, and the current values for those stops. So as I'm monitoring the performance of this portfolio, one of the things that I would expect you want to do is you might go to those bottom performers and take a look at their graphs. So I can tag them either by holding the Control key or the Shift key, tag them, and I can look at the graphs of those highlighted stocks. Now if I'm a Profit Locker Pro subscriber, I can also see the Profit Locker Pro graph for the stock. And as we saw in our previous demonstrations, I could close the highlighted positions by clicking the Close Position button or the Add Trade button and enter a manual ticket. Here we can see the Alerts tool has 10 alerts for me indicating that we made some buy long orders in our trading system. That can come to you also by text message or by email. And if I would like to either tweak or change my approach, it's simply a matter of coming back into the edit function, customizing the trading system, and coming back to whatever situation I'd like to modify moving forward. I have one more resource I'd like to share with you. If you'd like more information on developing a trading system or a trading plan, check out our special presentation from May 10th of this year, How to Get Rich on Autopilot. So automating your portfolio can simplify the task of managing your portfolio. It can eliminate mistakes and improve your performance. That's true for your contest entry, but also for your real portfolio. And we wish you all best of luck in the All User Group member HSPC.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Now, if you're new to the software or would like refresher information about the software, click on this Getting Started video right here. Thanks to all of your input, here's a YouTube video that we think would be perfect for you. Click right here. If nothing else, folks, just hit the subscribe button right here.